To understand this assignment, we need to start with the word bibliography, which just means list of books, right? Just a list of books. And for our purposes, it won't be just books. It will be a lot of things. It'll be books and journal articles and studies and field notes and interviews and anything that can qualify as an academic resource. The first part of that, annotated, just means notes on. So it's our notes on all of our sources, our notes on a list of books. That's what those two words mean together. It's an annoyingly long name, right? Annotated bibliography, but that's all that it means. And so I think that hopefully demystifies the work a little bit. It's an important part of a lot of academic work, but that's really all that it is. And I want to give you an example of how I used this in the past. I use it on every major academic thing that I do. I do an annotated bibliography, and the largest one I ever did was for my dissertation. The second largest was for my comprehensive exams, and there was some overlap there. But when I was doing my comprehensive exams for Georgia State to get my PhD, I was very nervous about it, and so I made an annotated bibliography, and I had all of my sources already cited with my notes on them laid out all around me in this room, actually, but without anything on the walls, just blank walls, and I had them spaced out everywhere. And as I started answering the questions that were asked of me of this exam over the course of about a week, I would pick up these articles that I hadn't looked at in weeks or months, maybe sometimes, and I'd totally forgotten everything that was written in them. But once I picked them up, because I knew, vaguely familiar to me, I could read what I had thought about it, read how I'd planned on using it. It was right there, and it completely refreshed my memory. So instead of having to reread a 40-page article, it was already done for me because I had taken the time to make those notes. And that allowed me to make connections between articles and between ideas that I would never have been able to make otherwise, because it would take too long to read all of these different things, right? That's a long, drawn-out process. It's a tedious process, but once we have reduced it down to some notes and what we think about it and how we plan on using it, it's a lot easier to hold up those smaller pieces and to draw connections between them and to make larger connections for the work that we want to end up doing. So our first step in doing any kind of research is to make sure that we're asking the right questions. And the most important part of that is making sure that we're not asking the wrong question. And the wrong question is always going to be, how do I find a resource or a source that shows blank? Because we don't want to be trying to prove some sort of pre-existing belief that we have, because the internet is vast and there are lots of resources out there. And so if it's our goal to show that something is true, then we'll probably be able to do that. So instead, what we want to do is we want to start with a question, something that we are open to changing our minds about, something we're open to learning more about. And that's going to make our research more interesting, first of all. But second of all, it's also going to make it possible for us to research in a less biased way than we would if we were just trying to reconfirm something that we already believe. So we want to start with a question. But if we're just starting with something we don't know a lot about, or with a question, odds are we're not going to know all of the right search terms to get the best results, which is why I recommend that you do this. So I know that it's generally bad form, yes, to use Wikipedia, but we're not citing Wikipedia, which would not be okay. What we are going to do is take a look at Wikipedia to understand our topic enough to get the right search terms. So if I'm wanting to do a project on Kenneth Burke, I can come to the Wikipedia page and get a general idea about who Kenneth Burke is, and then take that idea with me elsewhere. And so I can look at dramatism, the rebirth cycle, and the thing that I think is maybe the most interesting, the deterministic screen. So I read about the deterministic screen, I like the deterministic screen, and now I want to go do some research on it. So the first place I'm going to go is over here to scholar.google.com, and I'm just going to type in deterministic screens, and anything over here we see that has these links is usually going to be available to us. And one of the best things about Google Scholar is it has these metrics here, how many people have cited something, and that lets us know, generally speaking, what is a major thing in a given field. Now, Kenneth Burke is maybe a bad example here because Burke is not widely cited, not hugely popular, and so the idea of the deterministic screen is not going to have huge numbers. But if you are looking into a bigger field, one of the things that you'll probably find helpful is the Google Scholar metrics that will show you which journals have the highest H5 index. And what this is basically it's a measure of the impact of the journal. The higher the H5 index, the more impactful the journal, the more citations that it gets. And so you can search different disciplines here, right? So if we want to search history, we can do that, and it'll give us a bunch of history journals. So whatever, area you're researching, you can look here to see what the major journals are. And you can also just search by journals, right? That's another way to get information on a topic. So I can look here for deterministic screens. I can also go to Galileo. So if I'm looking at Galileo, there's a couple of things that I want to do. So first of all, I want to limit to the full text, right? Then I want to limit to scholarly peer-reviewed journals. And this is going to filter out a lot of sources that I don't want. And then I want academic journals. I'm a little time pressed here, so I don't want to do ebooks. I don't want to do full books. We'll do the academic journals. And now we have a whole list of sources that we can look at that we can begin getting ready to cite. So our next step is to actually go ahead and try creating a citation and an annotation of that citation. So I've pulled up an article here based on my initial search of deterministic screens, and don't worry about what this article is. The important thing here is that we're going to be able to pull information and put it somewhere else to create a citation. So I've got most everything I need right up here at the top. And you'll have to look for this information in different places in different articles. That's true. But as long as you're inside of Galileo, you've got this handy button over here that says Cite. So you can click on this, and then you can scroll on down to whatever citation style you're using. For us, that's MLA. And we've got all this information right here. So I'm going to do my citation in Google Drive and Google Docs, and that's what I recommend you use as well. Yes, you'll have to create a Google account to do that. A lot of people already have them. If not, it's cheap and free, and it gives you access to Google Docs. So from here, this is the Google Drive homepage. I'm going to go to New Document, and then I am going to click on Tools and click on Citations, okay? New Document, Tools, Citations. And I have the 9th edition of MLA, and I'm going to add a source. Now, this is a journal article, and you remember I limited my search earlier on Galileo to scholarly articles, to journal articles. So I made sure to get one of those, and it was accessed by an online database. So I've got these fields right here that I can go ahead and fill out. So it wants the scholar, or the author first, and so that is going to be Fry J Fry. Oh wait, Joshua Fry. There it is. So first name Joshua, last name Fry. Okay, and then the title. I can come back over here, and it's got a weird symbol in it, so we're just going to copy and paste that in. And then it wants the journal title, which is the KB Journal. And I can see that here, by the way. KB Journal, Volume 13, Number 1. Volume 13. Number or issue are the same thing. And then it wants the pages. Now, the KB Journal doesn't actually have pages because it's a digital journal. So if a journal is in print, oftentimes it will have pages that go along with it. But this one doesn't have it, so when it doesn't have it, we leave it blank. And it was published in 2017. And the database is EBSCOhost, and we can see that here. You do not have to include a URL. You can if you want to. I don't find it especially useful, but you are welcome to. So the date accessed is, let's see, what's today? January, and it's 2023. 21. Month, January, year, 2023. And that's everything that we need. Okay, so we're going to click Add Citation or Source. Now, this is in here now. So when I am ready, I can click here on Insert Works Cited page. Now, this is going to give me this thing to begin working with. You'll note that I've got a hanging indentation here. A hanging indentation is just, it just means that the first line is aligned all the way to the left, and every line after the first is indented over. It's made italics of my journal title. It's put quotes and a period after my actual title. This is all formatted perfectly. Now, we do need to change this because it's not the works cited. It's an annotated bibliography, and I'm going to give it a real title, like Burke's, there it is, Deterministic Screens and Transhumanism. Okay, because that's what this article is about. And I'm most of the way there, at least with the kind of difficult to do tech side of things. I'll go ahead and make sure it's got my title in there up top. And now I need to do two things. I need one paragraph that's a summary and one paragraph that's an analysis. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what the summary is and what the analysis is. For the summary, what I want to do is I want to go through, and let's close this out. And I want to read this. This article. This is not a terribly long article. Some of them are really, really long, and so we'll talk in a different recording about how to read different journal articles. But this one's not very long, so I would read this article, and then if I wanted to do a really good summary of it, I'd have some notes I took along the way probably, but then I would walk away from it for a minute. I would not look at the article and try to write the summary at the same time. And the reason I wouldn't want to do that is because if I'm looking at this article and looking at these words and I'm over here trying to type up a summary, then the result is going to be that I end up copying some things unintentionally. And that's very bad because even though it's unintentional, depending on who's looking at it, that could definitely get flagged as plagiarism, which causes all kinds of problems. We don't want to do it. But if I go and I read it, and then I walk away for a minute, and then go to write my summary and just write down everything that I remember about it that I think is relevant, then there's no possible way I'm going to end up cribbing off of any of the text. And to give you an example of this, imagine reading any of this stuff right here and then walking away for 15 minutes and doing something else and then trying to reproduce a sentence word for word. It'd be incredibly difficult unless you were actively, trying to memorize one of them. So that's the best way to do a summary. Just give yourself a little bit of space between the reading and the writing. And this does mean, necessarily that you have to actually read and understand the material, but that's the point of this assignment. Now, the analysis section is different. We can think of the summary section as answering the question, what does the article say? And the analysis section of answering, how is this relevant to me and to the paper that I want to write? Or after we have more sources here, how is it relevant to my other sources? So it's more about application and connection. And those are the two things there. So you'll have a summary that you put in, and you'll have an analysis that you put in, and that's it. That is one citation and one annotation, and that's the whole thing. So then you'll go back and you'll just repeat that process and do it again. So I wanted to go ahead and show you something else that will happen when you add more sources, and just to sort of round out the formatting that we need for this annotated bibliography to be complete. So I've added an additional source over here, another source on the same topic or in the same general area. And look what happens. I've got my, everything's nice here. I've got my nice written summary and my nice analysis. And when I insert works cited here, it gives me a whole new one. Right, another one on top of this, but also note that it doesn't have my summary or analysis in here. And so what I would have to do is I have to take my summary and analysis for Fry and drag it down here to the end and do a little bit of manual formatting just to make sure everything looks right, okay? So I get that put in there, and then I'll go back through and delete this. Then I'll copy this one. And get everything set up all nice and pretty, right? So that I've got this, my title centered. I've got the author, this arranged by author last name alphabetically, which it'll do automatically when you insert works cited. but it is going to be admittedly a bit of a pain to go through and have to replace your summary and analysis in the right spot each time. The alternative is, of course, just to have these all done first, to gather your sources first, and then go ahead and put it in. But even with that difficulty, this is still, to me, the easiest way to actually end up formatting all of this together. So that is a difficulty, yes, but I think it's still the easiest way to do it. So the last thing we need to do here is we need to go up one and align it left, and we need to put in our MLA heading. Just like any major assignment that we would have, we would want to go ahead and put an MLA and heading in there. So my generic student, the professor, which is me, the class, which is some iteration of English and some, numbers, depending on which course you're in. And then finally, we'll just do, because there's a bunch of different titles. And then finally, the due date of the assignment, right? We don't put the day that we started. We put the day that it's due. Now, we still need to put last name and page number in the top right-hand corner. So let's go to Insert at the top, and then let's put the page number, which is right here. And it's going to give you a couple of options here. Look, the difference here is where the page numbers are. So it's in the top right here. It's also in the top right here, but it ignores the first page. This is for APA. For MLA, though, we're going to put this here, and then we're going to put our cursor on the other side, type out, whoops, that's me. We want McLearner. And then hit space. And now every time we go to a new page, it'll automatically put that information in for us. So now I have a properly formatted, properly titled, properly arranged by author last name, annotated bibliography. The text is going to look a slightly different because you'll have a full summary and a full analysis, but this is what the structure will look like when you do this assignment. It changes a little bit for APA. Obviously, you'll have APA citations, APA headings up here, the APA heading up here. But in general, that's the process. So yes, this is a tedious process. It is 0% fun. That said, this is a tremendously important process, and it's tedious and difficult to really engage with, in part because it's not something that's going to end up in your final paper, in the actual text of the final paper. You're not going to be copying your summary. You're not going to be copying your analysis. The rhetorical exigence of each of those assignments is so different that it's just going to stay inside of the annotated bibliography. And yet, it's such a useful tool for scholarship. It's such a useful tool for actually learning material and then being able to make that material work with other material and to make those connections and see the differences, that even when I wasn't, required to do it, I still did it for any major scholarship that I was doing. And that's also true of many other people in my program, and many other scholars that I know and professors that I know, is that if they're going to be doing serious work, this is the first step for them. They've got to start looking at all the material in a way that is more manageable than just the thousands and thousands of pages of stuff out there that it's humanly impossible to keep it all straight. So this is what we do instead, right? We do the annotated bibliography, and that allows us to actually do the real work of scholarship. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that this has made it a little bit clearer how that process works and that the steps are easy. And of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.